YouTube, what the crap's going on? HeirofCarthage here, and I haven't played the Boii since the release of Emperor Edition, decided to. I actually think these guys are a fairly capable barbarian faction. They've got good horsemen, both medium and heavy. They've got access to cheap bowmen. They're not elite, but they're decent. They got axe warriors, which are a decent support unit. They have fierce swords, which are a good mainline unit, actually, or sword followers, sorry. Actually, a pretty strong mainline unit. Good charge, good attack, good damage. Very good armor. Not as good as like Romans or something, but it's good. Good health and good morale. They also have, let's see, it's my general that I was seeing those things on. Yeah, so never mind. Yeah, the sword follower is a good unit. They have javelins as well. They also have these spear warriors. They've taken cavalry counter tactics off of the cheapest spears, which means you can no longer use levy freemen and stuff to tank up a bunch of cav kills. They're really just more charge bait and arrow fodder at this point. But spear warriors serve a purpose now for sure because they have that cavalry counter tactics and the cheaper ones don't. Plus these guys are just a little sturdier, so these guys are meant to be used in a cavalry fight at this point. And I'm playing against Pontus. As far as Pontus matching up against a barbarian faction, my biggest worry was chariots. My opponent does me a huge favor and does not bring chariots. Chariots are probably, and again, I haven't tested them enough to prove this, but I've seen them enough to definitely feel like they're overpowered. They can be stopped easily with cavalry, but man, if they get into infantry or skirmishers, oh gosh, it's nothing to see them get like 600 or 800 kills. Because if you don't have heavy cavalry to stop them with, I mean, you should quit. There's nothing you can do about it. Unless they've changed them since the last time I saw them running around, which I don't think they have. But Pontus still has some seriously good tools. They have Noble Blood Cav. They have access to, I think, another good melee cav. But then they've also got Pontic Royal Cav, which is a nice Lancer Cav. Very good. It's pretty expensive, though. I think its only downside is the cost. They have Pontic Swordsmen, which are probably not that far off key with Thorax Swords. They've got access to Levy Pikes, and Bronze Shields. They have access to Eastern Archers and Eastern Slingers. And these guys are going out of line of sight for a moment because my opponent's standing back here, and I don't want to just wait around, so I'm going to go ahead and attack even though I'm going uphill. My opponent does start moving his cavalry. And you can see right here, so I'm going to go ahead and tell you straight up in this battle, I make a ton of micro mistakes, like a ton of them. I'm not quick enough with my moves, but we're going to analyze what goes on here, and I'll kind of show you how it turns out. So we're going to go ahead and go into play. Again, I intend to ignore my opponent's pikes. His slingers I'll try and get with my archers or cav when I get a chance. But you can see that my opponent goes ahead and starts splitting here, and he just comes too close to my spearmen. And he doesn't have a charge order, so I'm not afraid to throw my my spear warriors in front of this Pontic Royal Cav because he didn't have a charge order. And here you can see my axe warriors throwing some javelins, and then my spear warriors in cavalry counter tactics, which means that I'm going to get a few kills on that. Unfortunately, he's going to be able to peel away fairly easy, which means that he'll save most of that Royal Cav. And then over here, I'm going to intercept his Noble Blood Cav with my heavy horse. I definitely should have used a frenzied, well, I think I should have used a frenzied charge. Maybe I shouldn't have, because my opponent doesn't have the right angle. I catch him on a flank charge. So, okay so far, nothing too big. Up front, the skirmishing's kind of started. I haven't had a chance to really target my archers, so they're just firing at whatever's in front of them. And I've got my axe warriors kind of in the way here. I'm screening against the Pontic Royal Cav charges. I don't want these guys getting a charge anywhere on me. And you can see that he's just going to take his Noble Blood Cav into combat with some of my sword followers. This was a huge mistake. They're already taking massive losses to javelins, and it's just not going to be good for them. He bypasses my axe warriors and decides to go for a rear charge on my spear warriors, and he's going to end up sandwiching them between two of these cav. Not a bad move on his part. They're not braced, and they're singled out. So that Pontic Royal Cav is going to get a brutal charge. Over here, I see that his cav goes wide over here. So I split mine, and I'm going to work my way around his flank real quick, and then just use my infantry to support this single cavalry here. And you can see that that gets my opponent's attention. I finally stop sitting around and start microing around his pikes. And I just go ahead and bring all my units this way, and I'm going to bypass this side of his army. He does get a cavalry unit, like he slips away from my heavy horse over here. He disengaged, and I wasn't paying attention. So unfortunately, he did not lose many men pulling away from me either. It must have been a good angle for him to do it. And again, I'm slow to react because I had a perfectly good catch right here and didn't. And you can see that I lured his cav and several infantry units away over here, so this was worth it. But again, just making a lot of micro mistakes. Now over here, this was not a mistake. I managed to pin his Pontic Royal Cab with my Noble Horse, and I forced him to retreat again, which he's going to take losses retreating from my men. But my opponent does retreat his Shock Cab quite a bit from me. Same thing here. He's going to keep trying to get to my archers. But most of my archers are going to survive at this point. I've got cavalry, and this was not a good angle to bring these guys in from. If anything, he should have swung around here. But yeah, he's going to get stopped dead, and then I've got spear warriors coming to reinforce. Over here, I go ahead and engage his mercenary Celtic warriors with my sword followers. This is a fight that my sword followers should win. Same thing, I expect them to win against his Pontic swordsmen, and they are. And again, I'm just going to ignore his pikes and shoot them with my bowmen. His slingers are now being threatened by my calves, so it's going to be hard for them to return fire on my bowmen. And you can see I'm beating down his cab on the flanks. Still really slow in my micro. It's taken me a while to swing these guys around like I want to. Over here, though, my general accidentally goes a little too far in front and gets caught into a huge melee here. So I'm going to have to quickly send in some infantry to support here. But again, you can see why pikes are probably not ideal. If he turns to attack me here, he's going to get flank shot by my archers. So it makes pikes really hard to use. And he doesn't... his Pontic Royal Cab really should have been used for either charging down my infantry from the rear or charging my cab in the open field, and he hasn't really gotten to use it for either very well yet. So this very expensive Pontic Royal Cab there, going away with only 10 kills and only 38 on this general right now. It's at this point I start picking up my decision making a little, and you can see that I'm actually starting to encircle my opponent with infantry. I'm going to start pulling infantry in, and I've already pinned him over here with infantry, and then I've got archer fire keeping his pikes at bay. So yeah, I'm finally going to start to get a nice surrounding move, and I've finally gotten his cab out of my back lines, so I'm going to bring up even more infantry support here. So Boii are definitely a decent barbarian faction, I think, in the Emperor Edition. It doesn't necessarily mean, again, that they're a power faction, but because they have access to cheap archers, I think it helps them a lot. They can fight off elephants with it. They have access to fairly affordable heavy cav in the form of the heavy horse, which means that it's easier for them to stop chariots and other enemy cavalry. They do not have shock cav, like most barbarians don't. I think the Getae do, but most barbarians don't. So that does leave them at some disadvantage to these factions, but played properly, they can do well, because they do have good spearmen. Spear warriors are great spears to go up against cavalry. And you can see here I've got axe warriors and all these units in here fighting. Yeah, now it's a complete surrounding of the Pontic troops. My opponent one last time tries to pull his general out and get to my archers, but there's too many units here for him to get through. He does get a few men through, but I'm also focusing my archer fire on his general. His general finally got some kills, which he needed. Again, shock cav is good cav against infantry if it gets a nice charge. Also very good against skirmishers if you can knock them out quick and move on. But again, you can see right there he takes a lot of fire. All of his troops finally end up routing. So I made a ton of micro mistakes in the beginning of that battle, which gave my opponent probably a lot more kills than I should have given him there. But I did manage to disrupt his shock cav charges against my melee cav, which allowed all of my melee cav to be pretty good. My archers got disrupted for a long time by his cavalry, so not as good as they could have been, but not bad. This axe unit did great. These ones did good. This spear warrior got quite a few kills for almost no losses, and then I expected good kills out of my sword followers, and they did deliver for the most part. You can see that they were definitely superior to the Pontic swordsmen and the Gallic, mercenary Gallic warriors. So in any case, hope you all enjoyed this battle. I guess the point is here, I was kind of lucky that my opponent didn't capitalize on some of these mistakes I made, like waiting a real long time to move my infantry and my cavalry. I think he could have easily gotten some good charges in here. But you know, sometimes you get lucky and that doesn't happen to you, and you gotta turn things around where you get the opportunity. Hope you all enjoyed it. HeirofCarthage signing off.